This is our countryside house which we are renovating to make our home. My name is Orion, this is Jess and Benji, and Lilia has just turned 6 weeks old. Since moving in, we have been tackling odd jobs around the house, from fixing our water situation by installing a pump, to finishing off our bathroom with some decor. And crikey, there is still so much left to do. So if you want to follow along every single Wednesday and Sunday, then make sure you hit subscribe to stay up to date with how the house progresses. Well, today I find myself back outside admiring the house and the damage I did to the front when I moved in. Because believe it or not, I actually drove the moving truck all the way down there across the field to the front of the house because it was just that much easier. I'm kind of assessing the house from the outside and the things that we need to do to it, as well as just enjoying the crunch of walking on the snow. Because in today's video, I am going to be fixing up our pantry, putting some shelves up and stuff like that. And that means I need to box in a window. So I thought I would have a look from the outside and assess how bad it actually is. Looks to be fine. The window most definitely is not closed, however. So I think it could do with a bit of a clean up and making sure that is all closed up before I box it in. And then I probably will go around and just seal the window with like expanding foam before I box it over, just to make sure that no draft comes through there at all. However, before we can do any work on this room and boxing in the window and building shelves and stuff like that, it needs to be emptied. But I also need a space to cut up my big sheets of ply and stuff like that to make my own shelves, because I want to try making like floating shelves, for lack of a better term, myself. They're not going to be perfect and super pretty, but I would like to give it a go and try my hand at a bit of carpentry. So I need to clear this out. Unfortunately, the bin men won't take our bins because of the paint can and various other bits and bobs in there, even though Jess has been through this and organised it into recycling. I think there's another paint can down there actually. But because the bin men won't take our rubbish and we're still piling up a lot of it from, you know, the move in and the renovation and stuff like that, a lot of bin bags and rubbish is gathering and accumulating outside the back door. Unfortunately, the tip won't actually take plasterboard. You have to go to like specific tips to kind of dispose of this, but they will take all of these bin bags. And I did consider hiring a van to do this, because if you didn't know, the Hertz vans that I hire for like a couple of hours or however long it is, if you hire a van for less than 3 days, you can actually take a hire van to the tip without being charged for it. I had no idea. Normally you need a permit to take a commercial vehicle to the tip, but you can take a hire van. But I thought I'd save some money and I would just do multiple trips in the car and just get my car a little bit stinky. Although it's seen better days. This car is most definitely not made for the countryside. Hopefully that'll change by the end of the year. But right, let's load up the car. My poor car has been neglected so much. I cannot wait to get a pickup or a 4x4 in general. I suppose it's a little futile putting sheets down, but it makes it a little bit cozier and most definitely covers up the mess. I do actually have like a proper boot sheet for cars. I just don't know where it is, and I bought this sheet for the tent box ages ago and never used it again because it's like ridiculously large, so it stays in the car. Well, I saved yourself the sight of me emptying this recycling bin, which had moldy food in it and all sorts. Absolutely stinks, and I still feel really sorry for my car because it's now all in my car. Even though it's a frosty morning, I think I'll be driving with the windows open. Oh yeah, it stinks in here. Let me tell you, driving in -6 degrees with the windows open is not fun. It's bloody cold, but all the rubbish is gone. My car doesn't smell that bad, although this thing could do with a spa day. Right, next stop is B&Q, because I need a small bit of insulation. And if they have small enough sheets, I'll put it in my car, but if not, I'll have to grab a roll. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they do. So scrap that, we're trying Wicks. Perfect, exactly what I needed. Now that I have filled the car with things that I probably shouldn't have bought, but things I definitely need, let's head back home, where I've done a reasonable job of cleaning up all of the rubbish. Time for just one last thing. Always incredibly satisfying. All right, the first plan in here is to clear all of this out so I can work in it, clear the window and start boxing it in. As it turns out, the window itself wasn't properly closed. It is now. I can't see that coming open anytime soon. I can feel a slight breeze coming because it's not like perfectly sealed. So what I think I'm gonna do is run a little bit of expanding foam just round the edges here and get probably 2 pieces of that insulation, box it in, and then actually start building the frame around that I can put my plasterboard to. I don't know if this is like entirely necessary. I've just seen like people say on Google and whatnot that if you want to seal a window, like the framing at the very least, you can use expanding foam to do that. As I'm boxing this in, I might as well seal it just to prevent any moisture coming through. It's going to be insulated and stuff anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But like always, it's my first time doing something, so fingers crossed it should be fine. For those who have been around for a while, you'll know that there used to be a window here. You can actually see a bit of the crack there. And that's been boxed in now for like a month or so, and you can see it from the outside, and it's perfectly fine. But if you have any tips on how to do this properly, then let me know in the comments down below. You never know, not only would you be helping me out, but you might help someone else out who wants to do something like this in the future. Okay, with that done to the best of my ability, I just need to cut a couple of these aside and slot them in. I almost forgot how awful it sounds to cut that up. Right, all I need to do now is add some timber all the way around as a frame for me to screw my plasterboard to. One step closer, I've managed to get the scraps in. And finally, the plasterboard. Now that that is all boxed in, all I need to do now is go around and kind of fill over the gaps with plaster, as well as all of the holes in the wall. Essentially just prepping it for the next stage, which is putting shelving in. And instead of like plastering the whole wall, I'm going to be using this polyfiller deep gap stuff. I've used this around the house for other holes that are like around, and it's done the job. So as there's not a lot to do in here, I think this will do. Just need to wait for it to dry. Then all I needed to do was just give it a really light sand. I was actually taught by a plasterer over the Christmas period that you just want to really get like 120 grit and then just lightly sand it with your hand. I used like a block of wood and some sandpaper just to lightly sand it down, because I used to use an orbital sander and you just take way too much off and you would never cover it up. So I've actually managed to get some like really smooth plastering jobs done thanks to the advice I've been given. I've sanded it down. I've given it a little bit of a top up over here just because the window wasn't quite flush to the frame, but it's all smoothed out now. I just need to do one more sand and it's good to go. But with that being done, I think we can actually start working on our shelving unit. I say some shelving units. I'm literally just going to put some shelves across here, almost where you can see these marks. And I would like them to be like floating shelves. Now, they're not quite technically floating shelves, but essentially what I'm going to do is this twice. So I'm going to have a batten here, a batten here, and a batten here with one across the back, and that is going to fix to the wall. Then I'm going to do a similar thing with two battens coming out this way, sandwiched between plyboard to essentially create my shelf that will slot onto this. It is the same premise as like this IKEA floating shelf. You just pin this bracket to the wall and then it slides on and then secured by screws. However, I'm going to do this all out of wood that I own, and I'm adding the bands onto each side just to give it a bit more like structure so it can hold the weight. Because one thing I have noticed about using these in the past is that they do tend to like tip forward, and plus this, because it's made of metal, usually if you get a better quality floating shelf, the poles are better and it doesn't happen as much. But I figured just because of the way I'm building this, it would be better for it to be structurally sound and safe than worry about how much materials I used, or you know, whether I screwed it into the wall or not. I just think it'd be better to put bands across. But anyways, I'm just creating the same shelf as I always create, and I'm just kind of sandwiching underneath and screwing it all together. This time I'm just going to slot it in, and hopefully it should come together. But right, let's get the bands all cut out and screwed into place, where I encountered my first problem, rather disappointingly. This idea that I've come up with, which I'm sure many people have probably done in the past, is perfectly fine. It will work. However, I didn't really consider the door frame getting in the way of the shelf. So I'm not going to be able to build this to fit the wall flush and slide it on. So I'm going to have to build it in place. As you can kind of see there, there's just no way for me to slide a full width like shelf onto that. I think this idea would have worked had this not been in the way, but because it is, I can't slide it on there. If I built it there, then it would have been fine. But because I built it here where the door frame is, I can't do it. So I'm going to have to build it in place, get some plyboard on top like I normally do, plyboard underneath, which I don't normally do. I'm going to add a trim to the front here. And I'm going to cut it out using something I've never used before. I have a track and a jig for my circular saw. A cheap track saw, if you will. It does seem rather promising. It moves on the track as you'd expect. It's just kind of screwed on, or clamped on rather, to my circular saw. So fingers crossed it's all good and above board, but I won't know until I try it out. You know what? I am actually very impressed with that. That worked amazingly. You can see there that it's just a piece of plastic that is like bolted to my like bottom plate for my circular saw, and then it just slots on the track and it's good to go. Doing this makes me wish I had a workshop so badly. The cold I can just about deal with. It's like, I don't know, like -3 right now or something like that. If not, feels a little bit colder because it is so windy where I am. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a field, so there's no windbreak at all. So I'm not only getting cold, but sawdust is going absolutely everywhere. Probably wear my goggles. Do I have goggles? I have glasses, which wouldn't help. Never mind. We continue. Makeshift workbench with my wood horses. Absolutely nailed the job. That worked amazingly. I am so happy with that little jig that I have brought. For those people who are interested where I got it from, I just got it from Etsy. I think it cost me like 30 quid maybe, something like that. And the fact that I can turn my circular saw into a track saw is so good. Yes, if you're skilled enough, you could just freehand it and stuff like that. But I don't have to draw any pencil lines. I can just mark it up, lay my track down, and just cut. And I just made those shelves so quickly. Oh, I'm so happy with that. And this socket I installed is already seeing uses. I also want to say, rather randomly at this point in the video, that I genuinely appreciate everyone who watches my videos. I know you hear that so often, and it kind of sounds a bit redundant because there's only so many times you can say thank you before it loses its meaning. But the fact that I have this platform and everyone who watches the videos and leaves comments and stuff like that to share the things that I get excited about and like have feedback from that, it's honestly so nice. Otherwise I don't know how to tell. But don't get me wrong, Jess is hella supportive and she's like always so lovely when it comes to me doing all these kind of things, and she shows a lot of praise, which is nice. And I'm not like a child or anything like that, but it's just nice to get some like recognition and bounce back when I get excited about things. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Anyways, back to our shelves. All I need to do now is pin these together using a nail gun. Whilst I was out there, not that you saw it, I actually cut the rest of the shelves down as well. So I'm hoping this roof stays the same width all the way up, but if not, then I'll just have to trim these down. I actually have a thinner piece of ply. These three are actually like thinner sheets to go underneath, and it was just kind of scrap left over from the garage. So I thought better to have thinner underneath because you don't need a big, like a thicker one, and then two for the top. I actually have a thicker piece of ply than this. I think this is 12mm. I have an 18mm ply board as well, but that's what I used in the boot room for the shelves in there. But I just don't think it warrants me having such a thick shelf here. Apparently 12mm should be more than enough. If you're worried, by the way, as well, this like leaning over like at the front, it shouldn't actually matter too much because when I pin my trim on the front here, it'll tie it all together, and this should be fairly sturdy. Time will tell. But first, the really easy job of using a nail gun to pin this together. I wasn't expecting that. But we are nearly there with our first shelf. I'm just going to add the trim on. And for that, I'm going to be using some softwood planed down timber because it's got a nicer finish to it. It's all going to be painted anyway, so it shouldn't matter too much. But instead of actually using like plyboard where you can see all the layers and stuff like that, I'll be trimming with this. And there we have it. One finished shelf. Nice and solid. That is not going anywhere. I'm not going to attempt to sit on this one. But I will get Benji to sit on it. Is it solid? Is it going to fall down?
I think so.
Nice. Good job. All I need to do now is add a couple more. So with some magic, in the form of some time passing, we now have multiple shelves. Look, Jess is so excited. She's already started moving in. Now, before you say anything, it's obviously not finished. This room needs to be painted and I need to caulk and fill everything in. And before you know it, it'll look very seamless. But right now, we can start using them, and as it is, it's fine. But I quite literally don't have the paint to finish this off right now, so that is going to have to save for another video. And I guess I should get out of the way. Jess is that eager. She is still just packing things in there, even though I've literally just finished it. Now, obviously, Jess isn't tall enough to reach the top shelf, and I mean, neither am I really. I could barely get up there. However, I was thinking of some really crazy carpentry here, where you have like shelves that fold against the wall. I've seen so many videos on this before where there's like here and then you pull it out and it turns into steps. I'm pretty sure I just said shelves, not shelves, steps that you pull out, and then you can walk up the steps and get up to there. Jess wants me to make a ladder, like a library, where it hooks onto the top and she can climb up there. That's another idea, I guess, but both ways would be pretty cool. I feel like the idea of having it pull out would be really sick, but probably a little bit out of my league, considering this is the first kind of bit of carpentry I've actually ever done. As I said earlier, I am a little bit disappointed I couldn't get these just to slot on and become essentially floating shelves, but it works the same either way. However, in the space of a day, we have boxed in the window and built some shelves for our pantry so we can actually store things instead of keeping stuff in boxes and bags, because it's been so frustrating in this kitchen to work on the surface that Jess has got currently. There just isn't enough room for everything, so I'm very excited to get the kitchen underway. But like many things that I have mentioned so far, like financial wise, as we are still in January, recovering from the Christmas period and moving and having a baby and all that kind of stuff, things like renovating the kitchen are on major pause for now whilst we just kind of get settled in and continue to do the odd jobs. Either way, vlog by vlog, step by step, we shall make this house a home. Oh, and before I forget, someone actually left a comment and gave me some feedback. It might even be on a live stream, saying that they would love to see like a cost breakdown of how much it costs to do these things. I will put a general material list down so you can get an idea of how much it cost me to build all this stuff. However, it has to be said that I'm in a fortunate position where I have the tools to do a lot of the tasks that you see me do, and the tools are obviously a large percentage of the cost. I remember watching a video of a guy talking about like, oh, you know, I don't want to spend that much money on paying a contractor to come and do it because it's far too expensive. It's cheaper if I did it. And then he's like, okay, like go ahead. And he's like, oh, actually, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it was like, oh, I'll show you how to do it. And it was like one step price of like £100. And he was like, oh yeah, but I don't really have the tools to do it. And then he was just like, okay, well, now it's going to be a £500 charge because you could use my tool, you could borrow my tools. And then he was saying, he's like, oh yeah, but I don't have the materials. Like, I don't know, like, where do I get the materials from? He's like, oh, well, here's like another £200. Like, oh, now it's £700 because he needs the tools as well. And like the materials as well. It's like these things add up, and you can understand why builders or contractors of any kind, carpentry or whatever it might be, why the price kind of starts to step up bit by bit, because it's all well and good me putting this list here of like materials and how much it's cost me to build that stuff. But when you cater in the fact that like, oh, I used a nail gun and that cost, you know, a couple of £100, and I use a circular saw, I bought a track for that circular saw. I also have the materials to use those things, like the saw blade and like the nails. And when you start thinking about that, it all starts to add up and it becomes a lot more expensive than you think. Like I said, one of the things that is great about this particular job is that I have built these shelves primarily out of screws, and I didn't necessarily even need to use a nail gun on this. Granted, it was actually quite difficult here because my nail gun wouldn't actually fit in this gap, so I couldn't use a nail gun in certain scenarios. And places like B&Q have really good services where you can actually, if you go in with your measurements, they'll cut the stuff for you. So when you buy the plyboard that you want to build a shelf like this, you can tell them like, oh, I want 3 sheets at this size, and they'll cut them for you at the store. And I think it's like 10p a cut or something like that. It's like really cheap, or you get so many for free anyway. So a lot of this stuff that I've shown today, you can most definitely do without all the tools that I have personally used. But yeah, if you kind of want to get all the stuff delivered to your house and just do it all by yourself, you have to care in the fact that that's going to cost you a fair bit of money. I am obviously in a very fortunate position where I have all these tools, and the only reason I have all these tools is thanks to you guys. If it wasn't for all of you watching my videos, liking, subscribing and returning every Wednesday and Sunday when I post them, I never would have all these things, because the way I see it is, in order to make better content and better videos for you guys, I reinvest the money that I make from you watching it, and like, the ads that pop up and stuff like that, or people that, pay to become members on a channel. Like, I reinvest the money back into my videos. So if you were here a year, 2 years ago and even at the beginning of the year when I started renovating my flat, and I had like next to nothing, and I brought my my miter saw for the first time, and to take on projects then, and then because people enjoy that content, I can reinvest. It's like, it was the same the year before, where I was going on, trips around the UK and go to these spots, and people would enjoy me going to them. So I would reinvest and go to new spots all the time and constantly travel all over the place. So I went to so many different spots, and it's a great beneficial to me, like, because obviously I have all these fantastic tools, or I get to visit all these amazing places, but I wouldn't be able to do any of it if it wasn't for you. So like, genuinely, really, I do mean it. When you try to be genuine and you stumble on your words and it becomes disingenuous, I do really appreciate you guys watching videos. It means a lot, and hopefully I can make cool content for you. So always, if there's anything that you would like to learn or see or have me try do that I've never done before, like building some shelves in my pantry, then let me know in the comments down below and I'll see if I can slot it into a video. There is just still so much to do that I'm sure it'll pop up in a video anyway. However, on that note, guys, it is time for me to actually spend time with my family and relax a little bit, because she hasn't really seen me all day because I've just been so busy doing all the DIY stuff and whatnot. So I want to thank you again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like what I said earlier, I genuinely mean it. Like having someone to share the stuff that I get excited about, and my DIY-ness and all the things I nerd out about, like you don't realize it, or sometimes I don't even realize it when I'm making the videos and I'm just like talking to my phone, as odd as it can be sometimes, that sharing it with you guys and getting the feedback is just, it's a blessing. It really is. So thank you so much for your support. If you are someone who's new to my channel and you enjoy, at the moment I'm doing a lot of odd jobs, but DIY and like learning and figuring out how to do these things and maintain your home and do the odd things around your house and save yourself some money, then make sure you hit subscribe. But as always, guys, been Orion. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, much love. Bye-bye. Oh, so scrap that. We're trying bricks. The window itself wasn't properly put. For those who've been around for a while, then all we need to do is add it. I have an 18mm one of these as well, which is what